Sarah, Kevin's coming on this meeting too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're leaving and then coming back in?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Oh, there's Kevin. Okay. So I think we have everyone. Oh, no, wait, we're missing Rick. Why don't we wait another minute or two and let's see if Rick jumps on.
Hey, everyone.
Oh,
To the regular meeting first, or did you come straight into the closed session?
Let's get it straight into the closed session, Laura.
Okay, that's okay. I'll let our clerk know.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I should know better than that. But closed session popped up, and so I just joined it.
Nope, that's okay. I'll let everybody know. And then the mayor popped in here as well. And then Councilmember Langle, just so you know, your name says Tom Lattimore, so you might want to change that.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that right now. I know he never takes his name off the Zoom thing for some reason.
We're not worried about it. I was just like, if you didn't go on screen, I was going to dump you out, just so you know. It's a closed session.
You can dump me out in a warm climate, not just off the screen. Okay, now why can't I find you, Dorothy? Why aren't it's not letting me?
Okay. So you go hover over the top where it says mute, go to the right, those three little dots.
Yep.
And it'll say, and then things will pop up, go down to the bottom where it says rename.
Oh, wait a second. What three little dot? Well, mine says, I went to the three little dots. It says more, it says chat, meeting settings, minimum disconnect audio, raise hand, more. Nope, then it has smiley faces.
Okay, let me hover over it again. Mine says mute my audio, stop video, choose background pin, self edit, profile picture, rename. What kind of device are you on?
It's an iPad. That's why it's a problem.
I don't have my iPad up to get it working. Hello, Mr. Swedlow, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
We are just waiting for a couple minutes, just
I don't know what's happening. So I think, are Kevin or Sarah, do you know, is Rick coming in here? Because it sounded like he had joined closed session, but is he going to be coming in here? Because we're still going to
I don't know
the agenda meeting and stuff. So
yeah, I don't know. It sounds like almost like he was over there and then he got, yeah, it was the whole thing. He got kind of left to the side while she was talking to Dot, because she hadn't really formalized. I think she thought he was coming back over here, or coming over.
Okay. Well, I guess for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:04. So just want to welcome everyone to the Council Committee of the Whole. And we'll just start off with good to the order. Is there anything anyone wanted to bring up? Nope, then we'll just go ahead and move to the review of the regular meeting agenda with City Administrator Apple.
Oh, can you pull it up, Sarah, so we can look at it?
Okay, sure. I happen to have that open.
Okay. I don't think we have we don't have a lot of stuff. If we go down to the council meeting itself, the regular meeting, we have nothing. We have the consent. What we have on the consent is the council meeting minutes and then payroll claims. Nothing spectacular today. And if you go down through, we got a report from the police department. Well, actually, no, he's not doing this once a month. Go down. There are two proclamations, which are straightforward as presentations. And then what we're going to be talking about is the agreement, just the agreement for final plat. It does not need to be done today because we're not ready for the final plat, but this is the agreement for the sequencing of permits. And so there's some discussion that could be had. And then there's also resolution reallocating bond proceeds from Dana That's a requirement for us to just give authorization to take the bond proceeds, which we must spend the bond proceeds, or we must allocate the funds for the bond proceeds. And then we have resolution approving official meeting location. That's where we had talked last time about the firehouse, and we have to go through an official resolution to set our time in place of agenda of meeting for that, and as well as for the planning commission. But really not a lot of, there's no, we must do this today, but it would be nice to have that one done. Because I think in April, the April meeting, first April meeting, we'll be able to move to the firehouse and move to either a hybrid or an all in person. That's up to you all if you want to do a hybrid. I think there's some value in it, but that's where we can have a discussion about it as well.
All right, any questions or concerns then for Kevin on the agenda? Not seeing any. So with that, now we're going to move on to the closed session. So we're going to leave this meeting and enter a closed session, and then we will come back afterwards. See everybody over there.
This is Sarah McMillan. I'm the city clerk. Oh, I would like to announce that the Duval City Council has gone into a closed session pursuant to RCW 42.30.1404B to select collective bargaining strategy. And they anticipate this closed session to last for 30 minutes. So they should be back into the committee of the whole meeting at 5:36 p.m. Thank you. Hello. The Duval City Council requires 10 additional minutes to meet in closed session. So they will be back at 5:47 p.m. Thank you. Hello, this is City Clerk Sarah McMillan. I'd like to announce that the Duval City Council needs 10 more minutes for a closed session to discuss collective bargaining strategy. And so they will be back in at 5:57 p.m. Thank you. Hello, this is Sarah McMillan. I'm the city clerk. I'd like to announce the council requires 5 additional minutes in closed session. Thank you. City Clerk Sarah McMillan, I'd like to announce that the Duval Council needs to meet in closed session for 5 additional minutes. Thank you. Hello, this is the Duval City Clerk. The City Council requires 5 more minutes for a closed session. Thank you. Hello, this is the Duval City Clerk, Sarah McMillan. I would like to announce that the Duval City Council requires 10 more minutes in closed session to discuss collective bargaining strategy. They will be back in the Committee of the Whole meeting at 6:21 p.m. Thank you. Hello, this is the city clerk. I'm announcing that the council requires 2 more minutes in closed session. Thank you. Hello, I would like to announce that the city council requires 6 more minutes in closed session. The meeting will reconvene at 6:30 p.m.
All right, just waiting for a couple more, I think.
My husband bought food, and so I might turn my camera off and eat. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah. We've all been there.
I'm not going to share.
I did that during a portion of the meeting too. I'm like this.
It's
I
from
finally
the
turned it
Mexican
off.
restaurant, the La Pasadilla, I think is what it's called. So I haven't had it yet, so I'm pretty excited to try it. I don't know if anyone else has had it.
You should be excited.
It's gonna be good.
Absolutely excellent.
All right, let's wait one more minute for the mayor, I think is who we're missing here.
I know earlier today she was having challenges logging on, so it might take a second.
Yeah, well, I guess it's probably, I think we have all the council members. It's probably okay just to go ahead and get started. So we'll just get going here again at 6:32. And our next agenda item is the Duval Arts Foundation Facilitation Request Update with Director Thomas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Laura Thomas, Community Development for the record. I wanted to provide a fairly quick update on the facilitation request from DFA. So let me get to my next screen. Essentially, because not everybody's always 100% in the know, we have 2 new council members. I want to provide just a couple of historical components. At a meeting with DFA in December, they requested a facilitated conversation with the city. I think there's just a lot of energy that's 20 years in the making, and they essentially feel like they need a valve to kind of let it all out. In January, we met with the facilitator. They interviewed both a couple members of DFA and then also administration. And then, I should say they provided some direction on a possible direction for a facilitated scope of work for that facilitation. We did not agree to it. We agreed to come together to look at a scope of work. We've been keeping DFA up to date. We actually let them know that we would have a conversation at this meeting as well and would get back to them. The Land Use Committee and administration have reviewed the original facilitation scope of work that we received about a month ago. And we've had some really good conversations. We've talked about it in all of our Mayor Pro Tem meetings on Thursdays. It's actually taken up quite a bit of our joint administrative time. At this point, we're not really satisfied with the scope of work. We'd like to look at getting that updated. We really want to retool it to be more inclusive of all of our art partners and make it a bigger and broader conversation that would partially be under the umbrella of our cultural commission. And so we think that's they're a valuable leader and should be at that table. And we'd like to look at a conversation that really encompasses all of the arts and how we're going to move forward together. We are looking at possibly and likely having our facilitator come to one of our next CAL meetings, if not this next one, the one after that, to talk about an adjusted scope of work with council. I shared with Councilmember McHenry that I feel kind of like an intermediary a bit, and I think it would be better if they provided direct conversation with council than me going back and forth between different groups. Included with that scope of work would be a Q&A. I would estimate that it would probably be about a 30 to 40 minute conversation. Just so everybody knows, kind of a prep work to go into a meeting that would be several hours on the part of the facilitator and maybe about an hour of time between administration and the Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor. So I wanted to maybe get some questions and concerns from council. One of the items that I will be looking at, and I've talked with Mayor Pro Tem, is I'm going to put some historical documents on our shared drive with a bullet point of just a history of at least the last couple of years, so that it's kind of just a reminder for everybody. So I can take any questions that that council has.
I'll go ahead and just start off really quick. When you are asking for questions for the facilitator, though, are those things you'd prefer us to email to you just so you don't have to madly type or write them down now?
Of course, I would prefer that. I think too, what I'm really looking for is like, are we moving in the right direction? We know that the original scope of work was not really necessarily the direction that we wanted to go into because it was so limited, and we wanted to open it up for that broader discussion.
Yeah. Any questions then on this or comments about the direction? Go ahead, Councilmember Schaefer.
Yeah, and I don't want to draw this out for too long, but Laura or Director Thomas, could you give us an idea of what the revised scope of work might look like, just very quickly?
Based on our conversation with facilitator, it really would be probably like 2 meetings. One would be more of an introductory meeting, and we would talk about the arts, and then listen to, like, each side would listen to one another. So the city would hear from the arts organizations, and then we would share information with the arts organization as well, because there's an expectation. We fund the arts within this community. We have a cultural commission. And I think that we are going to hear, honestly, even from the broader arts committees, some minor criticism. 2 years of pandemic, were difficult on the organizations, and we have not fully funded DCC. And right now it's unstaffed and was understaffed for a couple of years. And so I think we just need to get that behind us, and then we need to figure out how to move forward. And it'll lead us into, honestly, a conversation in budgeting as well. It was one of the things that we talked about with Mayor Pro Tem and the mayor and Kevin and I is, we're going to start the budget process here in just a couple of months. And so we want to have some clear guidance, honestly, from council as well as of how we'll continue to be a partner.
Good. No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Hoag.
Oh, thank you. So I appreciate you coming forward with this, Director Thomas. This has been a topic that's come up at land use many times, and I'll speak a little bit for land use, but I did run this by the rest of the committee. But if we're going to have this kind of a facilitation or a discussion, we do think it should be with the entire arts community. We also would, we think that it should be the entire council, not just a small group of council members. And the timeline and history is really important, especially since we have newer council members. And even myself, I still, the history goes so far back that it's really important to understand all of the history. And I think there needs to be less focus on the past history and more on where we're going forward. And the goals and outcomes really need to be clearly defined for both the city and the arts organizations in order to be successful. So that's just some of the stuff that the committee has talked about. We really feel the value and importance in the arts in our community. So I can't express that enough. So thanks.
Anyone else? One thing I would just add, I've been thinking about the, what would happen when this goes forward. The whole council initially is what I was thinking as well. But one thing I would just throw out there to think about is if, it's not like everyone, of course, all the council members love art. It's a big part of Duval, but does that necessarily mean they would want to sit on that committee or in those meetings? I'm not sure. I think I'd have to understand the scope better. So maybe that's something we could come to a consensus on after we, after Director Thomas comes back with that, that could help us decide if it's something that we really do want everybody on, or if we do want to designate a few people to sit on it and represent the rest of council. Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Mercer.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, Laura did some outreach, which I appreciated. I'm fairly familiar with the DFA piece of this, but one thing I was just going to ask Laura, when you're putting together the historical data, what would actually be more helpful for me, someone who hasn't been involved with the Arts Commission or outside of being sort of a, a resident of Duval, an inventory of what those organizations are. I mean, I would love to understand when we talk about the broader art community, what that actually is today. And I know there's both formal and informal. There's the festivals and events that we sponsor as a community, but would love to understand, a little more historical context beyond just DFA in terms of what art looks like when we talk about the arts community in Duval.
I will do my best on that, but I have not been the historical staff member, so I'm probably gonna have to talk internally to probably the mayor and see what information we have within our files. I think I have a gauge of it, but I'm not going to be 100% the person that can do it, and the staff member we had is gone.
That's entirely fair. I wasn't
Okay.
looking for a comprehensive inventory. It was
Okay.
really more just a sense of, broadening it beyond DFA, what kind of that looks like, to have a, a rough pulse on what the art community looks like. Thank you.
Mayor?
So to respond to that, I think Mayor Pro Tem, the person that used to staff the Cultural Commission in the city of Duval is still a member of our community. So we might be able to pull some of that information together. City Administrator Director Thomas and I met with her just a few weeks ago, and she had a good sheet. And I think that there's a possibility we might be able to pay some hours for her to do a report potentially if we asked her on the history of the arts in Duval. She was involved for more than 20 years, first as a volunteer, then as a staff member. So I think that there's opportunity to get that in-depth information as well. And I'll just say, Councilmember Mercer, my first introduction to the arts was in Duval was an economic development meeting with the DCC and DFA from the city's last comprehensive economic development plan. And that was over 15 years ago. So there's been over the years, less and less investment in the arts in the city. And so that's one of the things that I personally would really like us to take a deep dive in and really determine what is needed to support our volunteer organizations and support that vibrancy, because arts really is a huge portion of our culture, our history, as well as our future economic development.
Thank you.
Any others? Then I guess I would just ask, is everyone good with moving forward in this direction? And as Director Thomas recommended, having the facilitator come and present and discuss this directly with us at an upcoming meeting? Go ahead, Councilmember Isaacson.
Yeah, I am good with it. The only thing I wanted to add to everyone going, I mean, I think that's the best outcome. But for me, I would like to be given the option to say, thanks, but I can't make it. Please go without me. I don't want whoever's organizing this to say, well, we're waiting on this cat over here to get herded with these cats over here, and we'll never make it happen.
Yeah.
So send it out to all of us is my proposal, to say what works best, but we're going to have to go without you. Is that okay? Give me veto opportunity, I guess, but I'd like to have the opportunity to say, I want to go, but I can't, but please press without me.
Councilmember Naplin.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I think one of the things that I would be concerned about is if through the facilitation process, we were making any type of assurances or commitments to do certain things that I wouldn't, if I was attending, I wouldn't feel comfortable making any of those without the rest of council understanding, is there a financial component to giving that impression that we would plan to do something or not plan to do something. So I think that is my only concern about it not being the full council, but maybe the way it could be structured would be to gather information and then, maybe have the first session of facilitation, bring it back, kind of talk amongst council, something like that. Cause that would be my one concern. I wouldn't want to set any expectations that hadn't been vetted from, the rest of council, especially if they have a financial component.
Great. Director Thomas, do you have what you need from us?
Actually, yes, I have more than what I need. So no, it's really good. This was a good conversation. I did want to share and thank you, Councilmember McHenry. When we did talk to our facilitator, she was a little hesitant about a whole group effort all the way through the process. So kind of what Councilmember McHenry said, and even Councilmember Naplin. And she did also talk about, like, essentially, there's going to be reports that come out of each of these meetings. There's going to be a lot of information. Facilitation is very visual, but also written and oral. So it hits all three. And so that's honestly why it can take a while and why it tends to cost a little bit more than you would anticipate, because it's a pretty robust 365 view.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So with that, our next item is Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition resolution with Director Thomas. Do we have enough time for you to get through this? It's about 15 till 7. And then I think we'll need to move our last thing to the council meeting, but go ahead.
Yes, it won't take very long. So we were asked by the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition about a month ago to provide a resolution of support, essentially for what their overarching goals are. And as you may remember, and even our former planning commissioners, now council members, when we completed the comp plan update last year, we included a lot of goals and policies that are related to this organization. So in most cases, we've actually done some of this work already, but they wanted this resolution support because they take it around to other organizations. It helps provide funding and it helps provide other partnerships. I can tell you that this group has grown tremendously since the days of when I was in those first meetings. I mean, they have Metro and PSRC and King County staff. I mean, it's a really amazing group, and they get a lot of information to us that we wouldn't normally get at a valley level. So I really do support this resolution. And honestly, the mayor's the one that said, okay, Laura, let's get it done. And so we're like, sure, we'll get it there. And so we have it in your packet. Essentially, it's a valley-wide support for mobility and mobility infrastructure. They want to ensure that infrastructure is accessible, affordable, convenient, reliable, and safe. And they want us to include this in our policies and our planning and our development standards. And they want this creation of kind of policy layers and development standards to be valley-wide so that there's consistency among the valleys. If anybody has a question, now would be a great opportunity. If there aren't any questions or you don't need additional information, we could put it on the next council agenda under possibly just consent or under regular business.
I'm not seeing any. Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Schaefer.
I was just going to say that sounds like a good idea, Director Thomas. Let's do exactly that.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to just see this on the next consent. And I'm not seeing any objections to that. So I think we're good to go on that item.
Thank you very much, Council.
And then I'm feeling like instead of rushing the utility rate discount options, we should have a break before our meeting at 7. And can we just add that to our council agenda? I think that's going to be a little more than 5 or 10 minutes. Do you think?
Yeah.
Mayor, would that be okay with you? You're muted.
That's fine with me. We do have a short agenda tonight, and I just want to, my preference would be to add it to the end because there's already been a lot of discussion about this. I may need to leave the meeting early because I am caring for my daughter who had surgery yesterday. So, and if I need to do that, you're well suited to handle that item, Mayor Pro Tem. So.
All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the cow at 6:50. So everyone has a chance to take a break before our meeting at 7, and we'll see you all back here. Thank you.
Commissioner Mercer, I must know what that wall color is.
It's council member, Director Thomas, council.
After sounds so sorry. Yeah.
I'll track it down. It was my son's room, and when the pandemic and started, and my wife had to move her practice home, I was sort of relegated to his old bedroom upstairs, but it's kind of grown on me. It's
I love it.
so
You'll have to look it up for us.
yeah.
All right. Hopefully we'll get a quorum here. All right, we've got 6 of the 7 here. The other one will join quickly. So it is 7:01 p.m. So I would like to call the Tuesday, March 1st, 2022 City of Duval Council meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Clerk, would you please bring up the flag for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Isaacson,
Present.
Councilmember Schaefer, Councilmember Schaefer.
Here, sorry.
That's okay. Yep. Mayor Pro Tem McHenry.
Here.
Councilmember Mercer.
Present.
Councilmember Hoag.
Here.
Councilmember Napland.
I had it unmuted when I said here, but I think you didn't hear me.
Councilmember Langell. Where's Dot?
She's in the attendee list.
Oh, she has her hand raised and she's like, please bring me over. Okay. All right. Councilmember Langell.
Here.
And Mayor Overlander.
Here. Right, and we have a quorum. All council members are present. Under additions and corrections to the agenda, please add under unfinished business, discussion from committee of the whole regarding the utility discount program. And then we will go ahead. Are there any other additions or corrections to the agenda? Right. Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
Councilmember Isaacson.
Right. We have a motion by Councilmember Isaacson. Is there a second?
Second, McHenry.
Right. It's been moved and seconded to approve this evening's council agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Do we have a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda?
So moved, McHenry.
Second. Commissioner Mercer.
It's been moved and seconded.
Councilmember, I'm sorry, now I did it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this evening's consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Moving on to scheduled items. I'll be really brief tonight.
Mayor Overlander.
Yes.
Did we do comments from the audience?
Oh, you're right. We did not. I apologize. I'm still working on one screen here and trying to balance this out a little bit here. Actually, comments from the audience. Oh, there we go. All right, we'll go ahead and move back to the agenda. And are there any comments from the audience this evening? Right. Not seeing any hands up from the attendees. If you do have public comment, please go ahead and raise your hand. Not seeing any. So Clerk McMillan, were there any written comments submitted to the clerk?
No.
All right. Seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to the mayor's report. Again, I'll be relatively brief tonight. Just wanted to let folks know that the district court is having a boundary meeting this week. You all should have received an email from King County Council Chair, I'm sorry, next week. King County Council Chair Claudia Balducci. There are some changes needed to allow the city of Pacific to have their district court judges all from the city or from King County. They are one of the few cities that are split in between two counties. So this simplifies things for that community. Moving on, we had a board legislative steering committee update for Association of Washington Cities today. The only topic on the agenda was a proposal that came forward this weekend as a surprise by the legislature regarding the transportation package. For those that aren't aware, the original transportation packages had an out-of-state fuel tax that would have provided some funding for some of the large mega projects in the package, in addition to, of course, using general fund and additional taxes that have been received to make some real progress on our big transportation projects in the state. The legislature brought forth within, I believe, the Senate side, a proposal to sweep $200 million from the Public Works Assistance account. And for our new council members, the problem with that is that it used to be called the Public Works Trust Fund, and the Public Works Assistance account is a low interest revolving loan fund for local government. It's what we funded our sewer system off of, and it's actually saves taxpayer dollars a significant amount of money and is self-sustaining. So this is a huge sweep. We'll be active. I'll be active tomorrow, contacting our legislators to try and stop it. It does not hurt for you all to do the same thing. I think one of the big issues that came up with Association of Washington Cities today, and I'm happy to forward you if you didn't receive it from EWC, their messaging is that this change was done without consulting the cities. It does more damage than it does good. There are other ways to fund those $200 million in transportation projects, not the least of which is the federal funding that's come in as a result of the pandemic. I did hear that there are concerns from legislators that perhaps they don't have the flexibility to use those dollars, but the argument from the Association of Washington Cities discussion today is really that just like our community and communities throughout the state, we are all moving funding around to be able to use ARPA funding for projects and achieve what needs to be done. So a real call to action. There's not much time left in the legislative session. So if you have time, please follow those AWC talking points and reach out as well. This is one of those rare cases where it really doesn't hurt if every single one of us contacts our legislators individually, since we won't have time to get a joint letter off. Other than that, preparing for the State of the City tomorrow evening for the Chamber of Commerce. Everybody, I believe, is on that list, and so should have gotten the invite. And of course, for the public, normally this is done in person at a Chamber of Commerce meeting where anyone can buy a ticket and attend. This year and last year, it's been online. And we will get the recording from the Chamber of Commerce to ensure that we can post that recording online and make it public, as well as the final text will be posted as soon as that is complete as well. So with that, that's all I have for my report this evening. Any questions? Yes, Councilmember Naplin.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up about the Public Works Trust Fund, and it's a legislative priority for SVGA. And I think there's going to be hopefully a quick turnaround so that we can represent SVGA. I believe they might reach out to the mayors just to double check that a joint letter would be useful. But 100%, you look at, we have a lot of infrastructure projects coming up, and you know, interest rates are rising, and having a low cost you know, it's a low cost option for funding is critical. So anyway, I hope people do reach out, and you'll probably be hearing, unless you want to tell me now, if SVGA wanted to write something, would you be on board?
Well, I'll just speak in general terms, is that there isn't enough time for a letter to be effective at this point. It's really about phone calls.
Okay.
So we're running under the last days of session. So and I don't know honestly that the SVGA we can get together in time to make that happen. I was unable to attend the meeting this morning because of my daughter's surgery yesterday. But I did not hear anything from any of the other mayors that that was brought up this morning as an action item. So again, I really think it's just important that, there's nothing wrong with citing that this is a priority for Association of Washington Cities, Snoqualmie Valley Governments Association, and our individual communities, and really point out to the legislators that they're sweeping money that is foundational in saving taxpayer dollars and doesn't achieve the purpose. So.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was called out very specifically as an SVGA priority when we went through it earlier. So I'm hoping they'll listen. It's really concerning. So thank you for bringing it up, and I'm thankful for your advocacy.
You're welcome. Anyone else? All right. Oh, I see Councilmember Lengel's hand.
Mayor, yes, okay, I'm not on mute. I just wondered if you had heard anything about the recent PSRC action around the 2050 vision, and they passed some type of a new document around housing strategies. I mean, you're connected with so many different things through AWC. I picked it up when I looked at Josh Brown's email that we all got on February 25th. And it does have the ongoing discussion around single-family houses, single-family zoning, and middle housing. It is one of their specific strategies in their recent report. Have you heard anything on that?
Yes, I have been reported on by that. I was unable to attend the last meeting and can't speak to that fluently at this moment. But for all that are interested, it is in the PSRC documents. So if you have any thoughts and feedback, please take a look and bring it back to us.
Yeah, and the email does give you a lot of links that you can get to stuff really fast.
Yep.
So I'll be interested in hearing what you think about it.
All right, thank you. All right, anything else? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to King County Fire District 45. Looks like we do not have a report this evening, nor do we have a report from the police department. So we'll move on to council committee reports. Finance and administration is up first.
Sorry, I forgot I think gonna do that one. So let's see. we met this last Thursday and we worked on procurement, and it's going really well. And then also Director Mason had come and presented an item to us. Councilmember Langle, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I first of all, again, thank you, Council, for giving the go-ahead for Director Mason to put together some information around the positions that have changed over the last few years. It feeds into the ongoing discussion around positions lost many years ago and trying to restructure ourselves to meet current challenges. And she did an awesome job with it, and she is posting it. So I encourage council members to look at the report, and it does an excellent job. It's, people did move around, and so you have to kind of look at the color coding, but I think it really tells the story, and it was just a really awesome job.
Yeah, and that was it.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the Public Safety Committee, or I'm sorry, Land Use Committee first.
Thank you, Mayor. So we did have a meeting on February 16th. We got another update on OpenGov. They're working on training internally. We did discuss the Toll Brothers at the last council meeting. The council had asked for the most recent Toll Brothers to come back to us to bring a recommendation to the council. And so at our last meeting, Councilmember Napland had given a suggestion and we did go over it, and it is going to be our recommendation. So we will be, it is on our agenda tonight, so we will be discussing that. We did discuss DFA again at this meeting and the facilitation. We also talked about autonomous delivery robots, which is really a great conversation. And then we are considering an interim policy around autonomous delivery robots. And then we talked about policy work, legislative update, tree grant, and we discussed the suggestion to move to the fire station for our meetings. And the land use committee is on board with that. But that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Moving on now to public safety.
Okay, this is Councilmember Schaefer. I'll go ahead and give a quick report on that. We met on, I believe, on February 22nd. We talked about the police officer recruitment effort. That is moving ahead with generally positive direction, and that does include our open sergeant position. We also discussed the administrative specialist position, and that is being worked, and the process has to be approved, probably not the right word, but at least worked with the civil service, since that is a civil service position. Chief DeBach continues to pursue the possibility of help from a mental health professional, looking at options to partner with other cities or with the fire department. And again, that is moving forward thanks to the chief's efforts. And we discussed the monthly report that the chief has started giving to council, and that was given the thumbs up. I think everyone in council very much appreciates hearing directly from the chief on that. In good of the order, we discussed a couple of different things. One was the upcoming 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Big Rock Road, and the fact that that is within the purview of the city to reduce that speed limit. And then I brought up one of my favorite ideas, and that's to reduce the speed limit on Main Street to 25 miles an hour as well. And as we all know, that will take the involvement of the state. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Schaefer. Moving on to the ad hoc committees. Are there any reports from those?
Public Works really quick, if that's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I really apologize. I'm trying to keep track while I'm
no worries. I know. Well, we haven't actually we haven't actually met since the last meeting, but I just wanted to shout out what a huge response there has been already on the Big Rock Park expansion survey that was released. It's really impressive, and I'm really excited. I mean, we're well over 700 responses at this point, and the ability for people to enter their email to be contacted in the future regarding it. I mean, well over 200 emails entered. So it's exciting to see that kind of momentum, and you can definitely see the community's passion and where it is right now is with parks. So I just wanted to let everyone know that.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And now on to ad hocs. I don't think there's any reports. Looking like it. Okay, great. So now we'll move on to other council reports. Were there any other council members that had non-committee items to report this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the city administrator report.
All right, I always got to remember how to put this stinking thing on. Share screen, there we go.
Okay.
And there. So everybody should see that. Obviously, it's the 1st of March. And I met with Savor Snoqualmie this week regarding what they're going to propose for the annual Port of Seattle Economic Development Grant. They were the ones who did the itineraries, the walking tours, the maps, the website to help support tourism in Duval. They are looking at trying to expand those itineraries and walking tour with more video content, possibly working with some of the other cities in the valley so that we have sort of a connected content, a series of connected contents, trying to do a single like grant. We'd need to do MOUs or ILAs, but they saw that there might be a potential for us to do our section, which connects into a section maybe for Carnation, and you know, talking about all in the same format. So they're going to come back in the next few weeks with what they propose. They were way behind the power curve because Port of Seattle has not really told everyone that the grant applications were open, and I told them no, it's been open since February 9th, and that shocked them. And so I gave them some documents because they hadn't had them yet. They were sort of waiting for it to open, and I said, no, it's already open. We were waiting for you to tell us what you're looking at doing because we've had a good partnership in the past. So that is proceeding. I think March 19th, I believe, is the end date for that grant, but they generally do most of the work for the verbiage for the grant, and then we just input it for it. So when I get more information from them, I'll pass it on to you all. The city went live today with OpenGov for its financial module, GL, AP, and CAS seating. It's still a work in progress. If you have any questions, and Dana is perfectly ready and poised to talk about it. For Laura, the housing needs assessment RFP closed on the 28th, which is yesterday, and we had one response. And I don't know if Laura will talk about whether it's a suitable response or not. I'm not even sure if we reviewed it because it's a group RFP. And we've also learned that firms have limited capacity for the 2024 the CPA. Will begin the process in an early scope and work because if we don't, we're going to probably be left behind because there's not going to be enough capacity for doing the consulting firms. And planning is going to bring forward a scope of work in April along with a staffing request. That's earlier than we had expected, but because of the current environment with these consultant groups trying to do our comp plan amendment after everybody else has already been locked in is going to be problematic. So we're going to try to push forward with getting an early scope work and getting it before you fairly soon. And if you have any questions for myself or Laura or Dana, then I'm ready.
Great. I see, first of all, Director Laniszewski's hand is up.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, citizens, Steve Laniszewski. One thing not on here, and I wanted to make a quick note of, sorry, Kevin, I didn't get it on your list. We put an RFP out for the 142nd Street sidewalk job. That has a very truncated timeline per the contract with King County HUD. So we will be coming fast and furious. They want us designed by May. They want construction by winter. So we are reaching out since they took so long to get us the final edits to the contract to make sure we can try to push some of those dates to the best of our abilities. But we are moving forward with trying to hire someone and get that work done on 142nd between 282nd and 278. That's about a block of sidewalk. Thank you.
Great. Are there any questions regarding the administrative report? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to special proclamation or presentations. First up, we have a proclamation recognizing the 50th anniversary of Evergreen Health. And I believe we do have potentially someone from Evergreen on the line tonight, or maybe not anymore. I think we did.
Hi, this
Oh,
is.
there we go. Looks like our clerk promoted you. So welcome, Ms. Lizzie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Oh, and Virgil was promoted too. Sorry, just wanted to make sure our commissioner was also promoted. Thank you so much, Mayor Uppenlander. Go ahead.
You're welcome. And so with that, hold up here to read. Whereas on November 7th, 1967, residents of Duval and Northeast King County voted to form King County Public Health Hospital District Number 2 to provide hospital and healthcare services to the community. And whereas Evergreen General Hospital opened its doors on March 9th, 1972, and for the past 50 years has advanced the health of the community it serves through its dedication to high quality, safe, compassionate, and cost-effective healthcare. And whereas Evergreen Health is governed by a publicly elected Board of Commissioners, and whereas Evergreen Health provided exceptional care and service to patients and our community during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas Evergreen Health is committed to consistent year-over-year superior clinical performance across a broad spectrum of care, as evidenced by its recognition from Health Grades as one of America's 50 best hospitals, placing it among the top 1% of hospitals in the US. And whereas the Evergreen Health medical staff is made up of over 1,100 providers serving the community with cutting-edge medical care in 70 medical specialties. And whereas Evergreen Health is committed to advancing the health and well-being of the residents of the city of Duval. Now, therefore, Amy Okerlander, Mayor of the City of Duval, do hereby proclaim March 9th, 2022 as Evergreen Health Day in the City of Duval, Washington, and encourage all citizens to join me in recognizing Evergreen Health for 50 years of dedicated service to our community, enriching the health and well-being of every life it touches.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Liza. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Legislative Affairs at Evergreen Health. And I just want to thank the City Council of Duval and also Mayor Okerlander. And I want to turn it over to our Commissioner, Virgil Snyder.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I really appreciate you inviting us to attend today. As said, my name is Virgil Snyder, and I am a member of the Evergreen Health Board of Commissioners. On behalf of Evergreen and our Board of Commissioners, I want to thank the City of Duval for preparing this proclamation and sharing in our hospital's celebration of 50 years of service to our local community. We're proud of the history as a public hospital district and look forward to providing compassionate, high care quality care now and into the future. So thank you again for this recognition. Very kind of you.
You're welcome, and thank you both for being here. I will say after 22 years here in the Valley, almost 22 years in the Valley, Evergreen Health Care has been a real asset to my family, I know, and so many others, with the continuity of care, especially as technology has improved and your systems, you can go anywhere at any time in any Evergreen facility and have your records available for the medical staff is absolutely fantastic. And I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, my family has gotten nothing but excellent care from Evergreen as a public hospital district. And we thank you for all of your service to our communities.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate those kind words.
Did any council members want to share anything? Councilmember Schaefer.
I'll just reiterate what you said, Mayor. I very much appreciate the staff and facilities of Evergreen Health. I've only lived here about 4 years. I moved from Colorado, and it was a great relief to find a high quality care system like Evergreen Health once I've moved here, and I've taken full advantage of it while I'm here. So thanks.
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Moving on to our second proclamation of the evening, 2022 Resilience Month. And with us tonight, we have Melissa Moon. Melissa, would you like to say a word or two before we begin?
Hello, everybody. So my name is Melissa Moon, and I am the Youth Resilience and Community Resources Coordinator at Empower Youth Network. And as the Youth Resilience Community Resources Coordinator, we partner with first responders, other human services organizations, both school districts, to kind of be the in-between partner between case management and helping all of our community members connect to services and kind of be that friendly neighbor person you can chat with to find out more about our resources in the area. And I also facilitate the Riverview Resilient team, which is basically helping our community become more trauma informed. And so thank you all for adopting our proclamation on behalf of Empower Youth Network. We are grateful for that. And definitely appreciate Mayor Okerlander and all of the City Council for proclaiming March as Resilience Month. I'd love to have you all really invite you all to take a look at our website. We've got a lot happening for March Resilience Month with a lot of parent education opportunities. And we'll have a resilience calendar coming out quickly. So I will probably drop some off at City Hall there for you all to share out.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation now. Whereas the City of Duval recognizes the importance of a community conversant in adverse childhood experiences, the effect of ACEs and toxic stress on the developing brain, and how resilience building strategies buffer these predicted negative impacts. And whereas the cumulative effects of such experiences over a lifespan, if ignored, are detrimental to individuals, families, and communities. And whereas newest Washington State research suggests that building community resilience by increasing the opportunities for mutual support, hope, help, and healing, and ways to feel safe and connected within all our neighborhoods and community is beneficial. And whereas promoting community engagement to learn more about ACEs, noted as the #1 chronic health epidemic in the nation by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and to learn how to interrupt the impact of ACEs by learning about and applying protective factors and resilience throughout our partners, agencies, schools, and families. Now, therefore, I, Amy Okerlander, Mayor of the City of Duval, do hereby recognize the importance of the coalition work of the Empower Youth Network, Friends of Youth, Encompass, Duval Police, Falls City Community Association, Riverview School District, Snoqualmie Valley School District, Sound, Hope Links, Snow Valley, and many other organizations working together toward a community of hope and healing, and proclaim March 22nd as Resilience Month in Duval, Washington. And with that, I just want to say that especially Empower Youth Network, all of the organizations provide a significant benefit to our community, and the fact that all are working together really is a benefit to everyone, and helps make us stronger as a community, and will help in the future to help ensure that kids are not experiencing ACEs, and those that do get the help they need to stop the effects of those traumatic events that put them at risk. So thank you very much. Is there anyone on council that would like to speak to this tonight? And then thank you again, Melissa, and have a wonderful evening. All right, moving on to public hearings. There are none this evening. There's no unfinished business. So we'll move straight, or I'm sorry, there is unfinished business, and we'll move on to utility discount program with Director Mason. Oops, looks like she may have stepped away from a moment.
I'm here. I'm so sorry.
No,
I thought I was coming. I thought it was going to be at the very end of the meeting, so I was just working away.
I made the mistake because we used to have unfinished business at the end, and we switched it to before new business. So that was my fault on the addition.
That's okay. Good evening, Mayor, Council, Dana Mason, Finance Director. Let me share my screen real quickly. All right, can everyone see the utility discount options? So this is just a revisiting of information that was presented at the February 1st Council of the Whole meeting. Just as a recap, the city looked at discounts provided by comparable cities from its recent salary study. Of the 12 cities researched, 7 used the HUD very low income limit as criteria for the Seattle Bellevue area. Let me go back one more. And then the majority of the 12 cities gave a discount in a 30 to 50% range. And this does not include the city of Duval, which is next. The city of Duval currently uses a tier low income discount rate, so 20% discount for those who qualify as HUD, extremely low income, 15% who qualify as HUD or HUD, very low income, and then 10% for those who qualify for and have applied for the HUD low income. And then the number of Duval recipients for each one of these tiers is at the bottom. And then a council member had asked how many of our low income discount residents receive pending disconnection notices and shut off notices. So these are the numbers from the last round of pending disconnections and shut offs. 5 out of 58 of those who received the pending discount notices were low income customers, and 1 of the 23 who received shut off notices was low income. And then this last slide is just some options if council was interested in providing a different discount or offering a different discount to its low income residents. Over to the left here at the bottom is the cost. At the top is the actual discount. The water is base rate only. So we currently only offer a discount on the base rate of water. You can see how much it would be per account, the discount per account. And then down below is the annual discount for all of the, so for example, in this first column, 17% qualify as HUD low or have low income. And this is the annual discount that the city offers. And then over on this side, 38% would qualify as very low income. And here's the discount. If those 38 were given the discount, this is the amount or the annual cost to the city. So I guess right now, staff would just needs to know if council is interested in changing the discount for low income for utilities. And if so, would you, what type of options would you like to look at?
Right, if council's not going to ask me questions, I do have a question for Director Mason.
Sure.
When you look at that low end, specifically, when you get to that very, very low income with the most extreme discount, we have a couple of questions that I haven't heard asked yet. And one of which is, how does that affect existing ratepayers? I know it's not much, but that will be a question that people in the public do ask. And then I do have a question as to, we have less than a 2% poverty rate in the community. Do we have an estimate that number does not reflect the actual poverty rate in the community? And so if we were to do a per capita based on the census numbers, what would that maximum and minimum amount? I mean, I think we have the minimum amount based on our current customers that would qualify, but what would that maximum amount be for each discount level if you based it on the 1.8% census numbers?
So for the census numbers, I'll look up that information for you. I don't have it available right now, but I can have it for the next meeting. But it is possible because our current discount rate is pretty small. So it is possible that if the city did increase the discount rate, it might be worth more people's the time to fill out the application and get the paperwork together that, you know, shows that they're eligible for the discount. So the city could see an increase in those who apply for the discount and are eligible. But I'll find out just based on the census where kind of that would fall.
Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you. 2 observations. Our current structure of 3 different categories, I think that's what we had up there. It seems like that's kind of too many. We should keep it a little more simple, and if there's a way to do that. So I would be more in favor, if we're going to have 2 tiers, I'm even fine with having 1 type of discount, which is what the majority of cities were. But the other thing, and this is just a comment, is when people can afford their utilities, or if they can't afford their utilities, this is integral to affordable housing. And in fact, utility calculations are taken into consideration when HUD defines affordable housing. So I really see this utility program is as a piece, a small piece, but meaningful piece of our affordable housing strategy. By keeping people in their homes, keeping them with appropriate utilities, it keeps them in a better place. So that would be just a general comment, but I would like to see us simplify this as much as possible. And I do think that honestly, I think a city as well off as this one can afford to be more generous.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingle. Councilmember Isaacson.
Yeah, I know I was in one of the ones that asked questions at the last council meeting that this was presented at. And still, I appreciate the follow-up on it. I'm still at a loss. So as to my impression of the first packet was that we were doing this because a question was asked, how much extra work does the current process that we have put on the staff in changing what we're doing now? How is it reducing that workload? I think if I recall that question, or the answer to the question was, it's not really a big burden. And the way I read the packet was a whole reason for redoing this, because we had all of these, we had an increase in a number of people who were getting notices for disconnects to their utility. And so we're trying to create a program that's going to reduce that. And I still don't understand how this proposal is doing it. And I don't want it to drag on forever, but I'm just at a loss as to what we're accomplishing with this other than we feel good.
Right. And you know, that particular agenda bill, or actually was just a memo, probably wasn't written very well by me, because the main reason why we started it was we had a council member who was curious about the discounts and what discounts were provided by other cities. And yes, you know, it possibly could have been tied into less work and, you know, less sending out notices. But it's mainly, I think it's just, we just had some curiosity and some interest in having a bigger discount for utility customers. I don't, so to answer your question, I don't think the discount itself, it's possible it could decrease some staff time, but I don't think it would decrease it that much.
But it's still a follow-up question, and by throwing a foul out, but still the number of people who increase in disconnect notices, we still don't know if this is going to help them. All we're saying is we are giving discounts to people, which I'm not opposed to that, but at the same time, you know, if the people getting disconnects, if it's not going to help them, that problem is still going to exist. And the people who are now going to get a discount, yeah, everyone wants money, but if they didn't need it, they budget it correctly. The mayor hit a number I haven't heard of. Our poverty level is so low. I know it's not accurate, but it's like, I agree with the feel good of it, but I'm just having a hard time understanding, are we really going to reduce the number of disconnects when there are responsible people that are still paying their bills, and now are they really going to get the discount? Are they going to ask for it? And you know,
that would be it if they.
I'm not against anyone. I'm just sharing my confusing on the whole thing.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Napland.
Yeah, I agree that question had been asked about the disconnects and how, you know, how many of the low income recipients had disconnects, or how that kind of interplay was happening. But I don't think that was the driver of the question. I think when we were looking at our utility policies, the shutoffs, the timing of the billing, and the discount rate, there were components of things that council wanted to look at. And one of the issues was, you know, how many shutoffs, how much time is this taking? And how that was addressed primarily was making a little bit of a change to the timeline of between the notification of pending shutoff and the actual shutoff. So I think it was another strategy that was the primary strategy to reduce the shutoffs. And this proposal to look at discount rates was really, it came up somewhat at the same time because we were looking at utility policies, but it is a separate issue. And I think Councilmember Lingle really hit the nail on the head that our community is becoming less and less economically diverse. And keeping people in their homes, I think is beneficial to the entire community. And, you know, utility expenses, they just keep going up. And I think it's a huge burden to the small portion of low income that we have in our city. And I mean, part of the reason I moved to Duval is I wanted to raise my children in a diverse community. And I'm seeing that go away because of the cost to live here. And, you know, I just see people leaving all the time because they just can't afford it. And I don't know that it's just about me wanting to feel good about something. It's that I really do care and think that this is one very small thing that we can do. And from looking at the budget, I don't like being generous with I take it very seriously being generous with other people's money. And I consider, you know, this our community's money. But anyway, I don't really have anything more to say, but the primary purpose of this for me, and from when I remember when the discussion was brought forward, it was really just looking at what are other cities doing, how do we compare, can we do more, and it really wasn't to address a shut off. Anyway, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Mercer.
Yeah, I just wanted to actually follow up on two things, because I think when we talked about this last time, there was sort of from a structural perspective, simplifying it. Anytime you can simplify, and there's some benefit there longer term. I think the broader piece is, and I appreciated the question the mayor asked regarding if we were to become, or if we were to adjust the structure of the discounts based on the per capita, you know, what would that look like, and what could be I think Dana, you also raised, you know, what would be the impact if it was more attractive to the extent that it would benefit more people. And I think the other piece that I just wanted to call out is, and there are people that will make various trade-offs. And so just the fact that we have a low disconnect or people aren't paying the bill doesn't mean they're not making trade-offs in other areas, whether that's, you know, providing healthy lunches, whether it is a trade-off in another utility, whether it's not getting the car fixed. And so there's a lot of downstream impacts that I don't think we see. So I think there's the diversity component. I don't think the low disconnect rate, we can make assumptions that everyone can pay their bills. I think we just oftentimes don't see it. So I'm still interested in the potential of shifting to a higher discount rate, but would appreciate the additional insights that would come in terms of what is the pool of residents that could be applicable to just assess, you know, what would be from a fiduciary or fiscal perspective, what would be the impact? Because I wouldn't necessarily want to do it blindly. I'd want to know what the upper tier could be, but I just wanted to share that because I think you can oversimplify just based on the numbers, and that doesn't always tell the full story. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Mercer. And quick editorial is that Councilmember Mercer hit the nail on the head of why I asked the question, is looking at the bigger impacts and the actual cost and what impact something making a huge drastic change in a program could be. Because it's not just about doing good, it's about what we do to others, as well as what we do to our rates, and what we do as far as staff workload as well. So City Administrator Apple, and then Mayor Pro Tem McHenry.
Yeah, and it's just a quick point, because I think we just went over 3,000 customers. So if you use the 2%, that's about 60. So we're actually if that number is correct, then we're almost exactly the number that we would have expected based on this. We have 57, I think. We're either low or very low or very, very low. So we're almost right there, but we can't essentially say 100% that we have not captured everyone, but it's not going to be excessively higher.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Councilmember Mercer, that was so well said. I agree with everything you said there. I think, you know, we've collectively expressed a desire, for example, to put more money into human resources and human services. And And this is like a thinking outside the box, like a small way that you can keep adding to that without just dumping more money into a grant fund, which is effective too, but this is just another way that we can help. I guess in terms of direction though, I'm coming back to the, where do we go with this? How do we, get this down to what we actually want to do? I'm just wondering if it would be easier to work with a smaller group of council on this to come up with a proposal, because I just don't know how we're gonna, as a larger group, be able to hammer this out quickly.
Very well stated, Mayor Pro Tem. I know we haven't heard from Councilmember Hoag or no, I'm Councilmember Schaefer. Things are skipping around here. So if either of you would like to speak to what's been presented, great. If not, then I would recommend that this be remanded back to the Finance Committee to come to council with a recommendation, unless there are objections for council that you want to make changes to the program. Councilmember Schaefer?
Yeah, in general, I am in favor of this. I like the idea of simplification, even though it may not save the city work. In the long term, it aligns us better with other cities and hopefully will save us some money and effort in the coming years. What I think John and others have mentioned is I think we'd like to understand the cost and the benefit of it. How much is it going to cost us? Who is it going to benefit? I suspect those numbers are well balanced, but I think we would like just a little bit better understanding of that before we make the change. So based on based on Director Mason's proposal, or perhaps the Finance Committee's proposal, what's it going to cost us? How many people or how many families or homes are we going to benefit?
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hoag?
Thank you, Mayor. So I would be in favor of this going back to the Finance Committee for a recommendation. I almost feel like this might have started back when COVID hit, that we were trying to help people, right? That there were a lot of people that were struggling during that time. And so, we're still in COVID, how many years later? But I just think that's probably how it all started, was kind of, and so I'm definitely in favor of something. I would appreciate if Finance Committee would dig deeper into it.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoag. All right, is there any disagreement to send it to Finance Committee for further review and to come forward with specific options for council? Okay, not seeing any disagreement. It will be sent to Finance Committee, and we'll go ahead and move on to new business. First up is Agenda Bill 22-13, the Ridge at Big Rock Phase 3 Final Plat Agreement. This is for decision, and actually this will be led by Community Development Director, Ms. Thomas, this evening.
Mayor, council, and members of our community. This evening, we're on, I think, the second or third version of the final plat agreement for Big Rock Phase 3. Just as a general report, the project's continuing to make good headway on their plat improvements and also their park improvements. As Councilmember Michelle Hoag discussed earlier, she gave a brief update from our Land Use Committee. We've talked about this agreement a couple times there, and at the last COW meeting, and council asked the committee to go back and continue to work on the agreement. We did that work, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe it was last week, and we did work on the agreement. So I'm pulling it up right here, and so you can see we've provided a strike and delete version. So initially the Land Use Committee felt comfortable with a little bit less units, and so we put those in there. So we brought them down from 20 to 15, and then in the second one we brought them down as well. As you can see here, we did share that back with the owner's representative, which is Toll Brothers Aaron Hollenberry. And one of the items that he was a little bit nervous about was the timeline for the parks at 4 and 6 months. There are just some supply chain issue items and potentially, weather related issues as well. And so he asked that we come back and look at just actually building permit review instead of actually receiving the building permit. So at this time, you'll see this particular agreement version is really only to review permits at phase 1 and not have any issued until that park is completed. And then permits come in for review at phase 2, the 1 acre park, and those not get released until that park is done. So we wouldn't be releasing any permits until each park was completed. Steve and I thought that was a fair compromise. We did also have some conversations with council members just about bonding. So we worked through that over the last couple of days with a couple of council members. And I think we've got a pretty good understanding that we have a bond in place now, and then we have a bond in place once at final plats. And then after the work's completed and fully accepted, then a maintenance bond is submitted in place of the performance bond. And then it's essentially what we would call a warranty bond, and it's in there for 2 years. And it has a combination, obviously, of infrastructure and of planting as well. I think at this time, if there are any council questions that would, we'll take them now. We can do any sort of reworking. Our expectation is not to actually approve this tonight, but bring it in conjunction with the final plat at the next meeting so that they're together as we go through the process.
All right, any council questions? So Councilmember Lingle, your hand was up previously, so.
No, sorry. I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schaefer?
No questions, but I do want to thank Director Thomas and everyone else that worked on this. I think it reflects the concern of the council much better, and in addition, is obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but appears to be acceptable to the developer. So it's a good compromise.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hoag?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm confused. We had, I know at the last council meeting, Councilmember Napland had suggested the 4 to 6 months. And so I don't have that in front of me anymore, but are you trying to get us to tell you whether we're in agreement with a longer period, Director Thomas?
So not really a longer period. We have the bonds that are essentially for a year for performance. What the applicant asked us is, can we just get them reviewed? And don't tie us to a time limit. They're not going to ask for us to pull, or I'm sorry, to issue any of the building permits. What I would say is they have every incentive right now to get that park, actually both parks, done, because they're sitting on a lot of value there and a lot of built up energy for the sales of those units. And there's a lot of money in the infrastructure in the plant and already in the park. I am not professionally worried that they're not going to complete those parks. If something catastrophic happened in the economy or the world, then yes, we would have an issue, but we don't, we're not foreseeing something like that. The market is still really strong for residential development, but they were worried about the 4 and 6 month timeline only because they're not sure about product being available. For example, we did have them, they're actually repouring, they might have already repoured. They have 2 kind of, I'll call spiral staircases, and they didn't come out quite right. So we asked them to remove them and reinstall them. And within those, there are light fixtures that get embedded into the concrete, and those aren't available right now. They're on back order, so they're looking for for a different product. So things like that really do come up in this marketplace. And so they were, I think, just nervous. And, you know, pulling a bond is a really big deal. As Steve, I believe, talked with at least a council member, he's done that one time in his career. I was actually here when that happened. And you go through a lot to pull a bond. It is like easily 6 months to more than a year to pull a bond. And there's a lot of back and forth. It's just the way that it works. And so we hope that we don't have to do that, but we'll have a bond in place just in case something does happen and we have to pull the bond to do the work. We are prepared to pull the bond if we need to.
Councilmember Lingle.
Yeah, well, I'll lower my hand so I don't forget. Everything that Director Thomas said is absolutely true. The worst thing that can happen is being stuck in the dirt. From a developer's perspective, I say that. I mean, your holding costs just keep going up and up and up. So I feel like that's going to be a pretty strong pressure on Toll Brothers, regardless of what else we put in this agreement. The other thing I also want to support her saying is it not only is it a big deal, it is very expensive to pool a bond, because you now are not just negotiating the circumstances with the developer, you've got a third party that's part of the discussion. And nobody really wants to get into that. Again, very expensive for the developer. So I just wanted to support what she said on that. But it is very, very, very expensive holding costs. Toll Brothers is big, they have lots of capital, but they're still accountable for those holding costs in their pricing, so.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingle. Are there any other questions from council on this tonight? Okay, not seeing any, so we'll assume that this will move forward at the next meeting. Next up is Agenda Bill 22-14, resolution allocating bond proceeds for discussion and/or decision. Director Mason.
Morning or good morning. Oh my goodness. Good evening again, Council and Mayor Dana Mason, Finance Director. So the city issued some municipal bonds in 2017 for its Main Street Improvements Project. In 2020, Council authorized the use of $790,000 in bond proceeds that were estimated to be available at the time on capital projects for the City Hall and Police Department renovations, and then the property purchase. Since then, the city has received a state grant for the police renovations project, which freed up some of the bond proceeds for other uses. And then there are also bond proceeds remaining from one of the final Main Street projects. Municipal bonds are tax exempt with expectation that they'll be spent down within 3 years of issuance. So any remaining bond proceeds need to be spent sooner rather than later. This resolution is to authorize the use of up to $300,000 in remaining bond proceeds on City Hall renovations, part of the police renovations, and then the wastewater treatment plant office remodel, so that the remaining bond proceeds will be used up by the end of the year. Are there any questions?
Councilmember Schaefer.
Sorry, Director Mason, could you explain why we have to use the funds? I didn't quite follow that piece.
Yeah. So the bonds are tax-free when they're issued, and they're municipal bonds. And so I actually asked our bond counsel for just a little snippet on this, but what she said, the consequences that if the IRS believes that the city's expectation, which is 3 years at closing, was unreasonable and didn't have a reasonable plan to spend all the money at time of issuance, or the city is making money off higher yielding investments, then the IRS could declare interest on the bond taxable retroactively to the date of issuance.
Okay, that sounds fairly.
Question.
Yeah, that sounds fairly dire. So anyway, your proposal sounds like it makes sense to me.
All right. Are there any other questions for Director Mason? Councilmember Napland?
Yeah, I just wanted to double check. There were some other items that potentially we could have used this for that are associated with the Main Street project, specifically, I think, art installations potentially. And so what I want to understand is because of the timing, if we decide to do it, to use it for whatever comes first, are some of those other expenditures that might come along later that we had thought we would spend the bond proceeds on, are they eligible for REIT? Or I saw something in there about general fund, or does that mean we have to hit the general fund? Whereas, you know what I mean? Otherwise.
Right. Also, really great question that I was researched a little bit. So what I found out is if the project itself had the art as part of the project and the project is also eligible for REIT funds, that art is an eligible use of REIT funds. So we could later, if those planks don't get done this year, we can use REIT to pay for the planks in the following years.
That's good, because I don't like to trade flexible for inflexible type, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
thank you.
And then there were two others. There's the mitigation and the maintenance expenses for Thayer Creek. And those aren't really, after a certain amount of time, those aren't really an eligible use of bond proceeds anyway. So we just have to find another source for those, but it's not capital after the main part of the project is complete.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Lingle?
Yeah, thank you. On the subject of art and Main Street, I recall that a former council member, Bernicki, talked about how the old planks were saved and that they could possibly be refurbished. So if we were going to look, I'm just throwing this out there. So if we were to use bond money, we could potentially do something like that as well. I mean, I think it's fantastic. What we had was fantastic. It seems like, especially since we do need to do more for the arts, it would be nice to see those improved if there's an opportunity, either with bond funds or some other funds, especially since they were originally on Main Street.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingle. Councilmember Isaacson?
Very simple question, I hope. I mean, my biggest concern with things like this is, I don't want us to fall as a city into a situation where we're going to use it or lose it mentality to money. I would much rather, if some of the things that we're spending money on, if we don't really need it, if the money can be given back or put in other places where it can be better used, that we let it go back to where it was received. I mean, when I go through and I see, and forgive me if I misquote numbers, but I think I saw something here for the police department. Trust me, I love the police and support them, but when I see, I think it was like $14,000 for desks, that kind of bothers me a little bit. But the simple question I have is, are we in a use it or lose it mentality with this? Or are we really trying to fix things that need to be fixed?
So the projects are a separate thing. Basically, the bond proceeds need to be used on a capital project that is approved by council. And so this resolution just says up to $300,000, or will be the remaining amount of bond proceeds can be used on these projects. It doesn't specifically allocate amounts to the projects. So there is some room if the Main Street beautification gets finished first, then that's great. But these projects are already part of the budget. So they'll be done whether it's with bond proceeds or REIT or park impact fees or any other of our CIP funds.
Thanks.
Great. Administrator Oppel and then Councilmember Schaefer.
Yeah, it was just, it was kind of already answered. The idea is it is absolutely use or lose when it comes to bond proceeds for the reasons given before. And one of the things that's even more dire is if you get an adverse IRS ruling about that you improperly made interest off of your municipal bonds, you can then get a negative bond rating, which means it's very hard to issue new municipal bonds. Your bond rating goes down to junk, and then we don't have that's a huge option for us, having municipal bonds. So it is a use or lose, but it's not that we took out this money. This is what we have to do to be able to get this good access to low interest money. And then I think the director Mason explained that these are projects that are already projected anyway. They're already projected in our budget. So.
All right, Councilmember Schaefer.
Okay, I was gonna try to answer Councilmember Isaacson's question in a slightly different way, but I think of this as actually just kind of an accounting exercise. As Director Mason made clear, these are already necessary projects. They're already proved. They're not frivolous or anything else. We have given these full approval and budgeted these. However, if we spend this bond money on those, it allows us to sidestep the question of improper use of the bond funds, and at the same time we move money back elsewhere to wherever REIT, general fund, or whatever other budget it moves to, and then we have more discretion on where to use that. But it's certainly not a use it or lose it mentality, as you put it. It's still going to good and necessary uses.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem McHenry.
Yeah, really good discussion. For me personally, I am ready to move forward on it, but I just wanted to make sure everyone else, because it was slated for discussion and or decision, but if others needed more time or had more questions, I just want to be respectful to that.
I'm not seeing any hands, Mayor Pro Tem, so I think now would be an appropriate time to make a motion.
I move to approve Agenda Bill 22-14, approving the resolution allocating unspent proceeds of the city's limited tax general obligation bond 2017 to capital projects of the city.
Second, Schaefer.
Right, it's been moved and seconded to approve Agenda Bill. Getting up to it here. Agenda Bill AB 22-14. All those, first of all, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. And then we will move on to our last item of business this evening. And that is our Agenda Bill 22-15, resolution establishing a new meeting location for Council and Planning Commission and Council Committee of the Whole start time. Clerk
Hello.
McCool.
So I found a place for us to meet, and it's the fire district has agreed to allow the council and the planning commission to meet at the fire district headquarters, which is right up the street from the city hall, for $100 a year for each group. And that's it's a nice building. It's a very small room, but it has all the equipment needed, and the building is ADA accessible and things. So this would be a way that the council could start meeting in person, and the council is allowed to start meeting in person now. The fire district wouldn't let the meetings take place there until the building is open to the public, but the fire chief says it could be open to the public as soon as April 1st, I think is what he's estimating anyway. And we do have the visitor center, and we have some other buildings that have a space, but the visitor center really isn't in a good state for the public right now. There's lots of stuff in there being stored in there, and we need new furniture, and there's just a lot of work that needs to be done there. So this just seems like a good option, and the resolution presented is required, to formalize that arrangement. And then I think Mayor Pro Tem McHenry had talked about starting meetings earlier at 5 o'clock. So that's also a part of this. And I think that's, it's pretty basic. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Schaefer's hand was up first, but being that the mayor pro tem has been very involved in the discussion, unless council objects, I'd like to offer her the opportunity to speak to this first.
Thanks. Yeah, in regards to the time, I know that can be a sensitive thing. We all have lives outside of council, and especially when we start meeting in person again, now we have travel time on top of that. So I'm open to exploring the 5 p.m. start time. With that being said, if that is a hardship for anyone, I am totally fine still with 5:30. I think there can be some alternatives maybe we could explore. I'm not sure if we find that we're getting backlogged on items, because our time for cow is only so long. I don't know if it's a potential to every now and again have an extra meeting to catch up, or if there's any other ideas people have. But the start time's been brought up a few times over the years. But it is hard, when you work, have jobs, you have kids that you don't get home until 4. So 5 can be really tight to eat something and get to a meeting. So I just wanted to say that about the start time, that I also understand if that's a hardship. I want to be sensitive to that.
Thank you. Councilmember Schaefer.
Thank you. Let's see. First of all, I'd like any other council members to speak regarding what Councilmember McHenry or Mayor Pro McHenry just said as far as the 5 o'clock time. I'm probably more flexible than almost everybody here. So if anyone else has a preference of time, please go ahead and speak.
I think a question I would ask, and I'll just a second, Councilmember Mercer, is if there are objections to that starting time. And before we get to that part of the conversation, I would like to remind folks that the original purpose of Committee of the Whole was to have one of the purposes was to allow people optional attendance, so that not everyone would have to attend as long as you had a quorum. So from my perspective, I see that starting time as, there are going to be people sometimes that can't make that starting time, and that as long as you have a quorum, there's business to be done and discussions to be had. And if the group feels comfortable with that, since it's a council decision, that goes with the original intent of Committee of the Whole. So Councilmember Mercer.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think for like a lot of folks, as we're transitioning back to the office, we've got people who work locally. I commute a little further. I think John travels some, so there's going to be, I appreciate that flexibility built in. With that said, I'm more comfortable with the 5 o'clock start time. I guess the one thing I would ask, and it doesn't necessarily need to be codified into the resolution, but I know more recently we've had some meetings that from the cow it's bumped right up against the council, and it is actually nice to have, like today, have that 10 minutes or some transitional time. I would just ask, if that, even if it's informally, we make that a regular practice, or when we move things into the formal council agenda, keep that in mind. That would be my only ask. But otherwise, I think with the caveat you added, Mayor Ackerlander, that provides some flexibility, and I think it's a worthwhile meeting in terms of being able to get more into the drill down and some of the practical conversations that we don't often have time for in the formal council meetings. So thank you.
Councilmember Naplin.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Mercer. I completely agree. I was thinking that if we do move it earlier, having a little bit of time in between would be helpful. And I'm also just practically trying to squeeze a meal in. It's hitting more into mealtime. I see a couple people laughing, and yes, we all need to eat, and we don't want to get grumpy because we're starving. So I'm just trying to figure out practically, how we can make that work. When I'm here, my husband brought me some food. It worked okay. Once we're in person, that's a pretty long time, right? At kind of crossing over a mealtime. So I don't know logistically how we can work that out. I'd even be fine if maybe we rotate and have an option of one of the local restaurants. We can order food for ourselves if we're interested. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing some ideas out. just to be sensitive to people who might be running late or in traffic or this or that. I understand that they could, it wouldn't be the end of the world if they missed the meeting, but what if you did want to hear what was happening or have the opportunity to participate? And as of it stands right now, I think remote access is required with the COVID special rules. And I'm just wondering if that's going to continue, so that if you were running late, you got caught in traffic, you have to go drop the kid off, could you dial in remotely and listen and participate as best you could? So those were just my ideas.
So on the dialing in remotely when it's routine, for example, dropping kids off, council would have to adopt rules on that. One of the issues with long-term, one of the issues and one of the reasons why remote attendance has not been popular in the past with elected bodies is because of the public's right to see folks. And there are definitely instances, I think even during COVID, where it has been or would be abused. And so there needs to be guardrails around it. Our city's current remote policy was based on, there are specific rules and specific items that you could call in about. I think that moving forward, there are, if council chooses, there are likely to be hybrid options, but it's probably more disruptive to the group to call in, just throw it out there, disruptive to group and staff to have council members calling in and out during a meeting if it's taking kids back and forth to sports or things like that. Just kind of put that out there as far as things to think about when you're looking at the remote policy. Councilmember Hoag.
Thank you, Mayor. So I am probably one of the most flexible, and I always value the other council members, especially the ones with kids that are juggling things. So I don't really have a preference, except I'm kind of curious what the purpose to move it up is. If the purpose is to shorten our council meeting, if we don't move the council meeting up, it's going to just add 30 minutes to a long evening. And I am getting used to being able to get up and get a snack or get up and get something to drink in the middle of the meeting. So it'll be kind of an adjustment. I'm wondering if we should just, it's going to be an adjustment getting back in person, I think. So I don't know, moving the time up is the appropriate time to do that, but that's just my thought. But I am the most flexible, so I can, I'd like to hear what the rest of council thinks.
Just real quick, Mayor Pro Tem McHenry has already spoken. We haven't, if we haven't heard from anyone yet, please speak up. But the other thing is, and I realized I just did it as well, got a little bit off topic of the agenda bill. So right now we should be kind of refocus it back to addressing the 5 o'clock start time and the fire district. And we should appropriately move the rest of the discussion to another time. So my apologies that I contributed that. Anyone else want to speak to this? Councilmember Isaacson.
Well, Mayor, if you're talking about the discussion of hybrid meetings, it's in the bill, it's in the presentation, I mean, it's in the writing. Specifically, it says it is small but contains the audiovisual equipment and other equipment and upgrades needed for hybrid meetings. So I don't think you really got off subject. It's a great discussion because that's one of my concerns as well. With my full-time job, I travel a lot for it. So it benefits me to be a Don. I'm sitting in a hotel right now in Tampa, Florida, right? So it is important to me to be able to have that flexibility. Otherwise, I'm going to be absent for you guys. I'm not asking the council to force it, and I will attend every meeting I can in person. I actually my schedule to try to support city council meetings the best I can. So
thank you, Council. And Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just, if there was, I guess I was just thinking in terms of it, what some have said about, that transition back to in-person might make it a hard timing to change the time too. So I don't know if most people agree that we should change the time or that would work for most. I think we could go ahead and do it. But if there's some hesitancy timeline wise, maybe we push off changing the start time to earlier until, June or something like that. I don't know if that would help anyone, help adjust their schedules, but if everyone's ready to rip the Band-Aid on it and wants to do it, I'm good with that. But I just wanted to throw it out that we could always potentially delay it, but revisit it, maybe put it on the schedule to bring it back up again.
Right. Anyone else?
Sorry.
Go ahead, council member.
So starting early, I think, is there a way to propose with this some type of modification to it to say, we'll start it earlier if everyone's okay with that, but if the intent is to try to be done early as well, we just don't take as large a break before we roll into the city council meeting. Can we just, is there a way to have that type of flexibility in the verbiage of this instead of saying the city council meeting? But I know that it's the public we have to bring into this too, right? If we tell them we're just going to start 30 minutes early, it has to be scheduled that way.
Yeah, this is just to throw out something. We have to put it by resolution where our time and place of meeting is. And it's just not possible for us to say, oh, by the way, it could either be this time or that time, depending on how well it's a great idea, but it's just,
as I was saying,
bound by state, by the RCW, and we just have to kind of follow. It doesn't mean though we couldn't change the time later as I think, because it's just a resolution. It's we just make a resolution halfway through the year and say, this is our new start time. So just want to throw that out.
Right. Mayor Pro Tem McHenry.
Sorry, just a point of clarification. I think, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I think one of the main reasons to consider an earlier start time is to actually have a longer COW meeting. So I don't think the intention was necessarily to shorten the whole length of the meetings. It was actually probably to make it a bit longer on the COW side of it. Because oftentimes right now, if you've noticed, the COW meetings are really packed full, and we've had some lighter council meetings. So I think it's just anticipating that, you know, in order to properly utilize the COW and let it be discussion time rather than just trying to pump through those agenda items, that we need more discussion time. So.
Thanks.
Right. Councilmember Hoag and then Schaefer.
Thank you. I don't normally like to ask to speak again, but I'm curious how staff feels, because I've been thinking about them today and thinking, well, you know, if the staff is working and then all of a sudden they have to get to our council meeting at 5, they have no time to eat. And it's just, I've been worrying about staff. I'm curious how they feel about a different start.
Right. Director Thomas.
Thank you for letting me participate. Honestly, I would start them even earlier if you'd let me, because we have so much work that sometimes comes up. So I might not be the best person to ask, but I do agree, like, we need to be able to have a break for a meal. And so that 10 minutes before a meal kind of helps us survive council. Because we work, usually we're in work at 7 or 8 in the morning, and we don't take very many breaks, honestly. And then just trying to get prepared for council. So sometimes we'll go from 7 or 8 in the morning until 9 or 10 o'clock at night with not full meals, but snacks. So, but we do have to get business done. So I like the idea of the COW starting at 5 and maybe cutting off at, you know, at 10 minutes before that. Thank you.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Again, before I speak, I wonder if Director Lenashevsky or Chief Duval has any input on the 5 o'clock time.
Thank you, Councilmember Schaefer. I would say it's ambivalent. It's either 30 minutes for me to find food or 30 minutes more work I get to do before the meeting, so it doesn't really matter. So, but thanks for asking. If it has a better end game, sure, but there's never a guarantee of that either. So.
Yeah.
I have to concur with the other two directors, Chief Duval from the police department. It doesn't matter to me. I'm there till 6 anyways on a normal work day. So I just, as long as we get that break to get something to eat real quick before council would be very beneficial, definitely.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I left off Clerk McMillan. I'd like to get your opinion as well.
I'd have to be really honest and say I think it's good to have a break. Would rather prefer starting at 5:30.
At 5:30. Okay. My feeling on the time is that instead of changing so many things at once, I'd actually And after hearing everyone speak, I'd actually prefer to stick with our current time, 5:30 time. And then consider changing that, sometime in the future. Then I certainly don't want to inconvenience staff or any of the other council members. Kevin, I saw it now. I now see your face, and I realized I didn't solicit your opinion either. Sorry. You have any preference or anything to say?
Well, I want to do what's best for the staff, but I think one of the things that we've seen so far and what we see is that when we make the cow truly, like I keep saying, the sausage making, what we find is the council meetings then are more effective. And so although it seems like it's the same amount of time, you notice we're at 8:30 right now and we're just about done. It would have normally been 9 if we'd started at 5:30. To me, it doesn't really matter as long as we do the work that's for the cow, that sort of discussion and work. And then we leave the decision making for that. It doesn't really matter when either of those go, as long as we get a little bit of a break in the middle and we focus the one and we don't just automatically, because that's what you kind of did before. You just automatically went to the council even if it wasn't ready for it yet. And so as long as we have a cow that is long enough that we can get work done, as Director Thomas said, and as long as we are then able to focus on it doesn't really matter when it starts to me, as long as we can really focus those two things on what their objective is. And I just turn off my camera and eat, because I'll say it, we can kind of eat during the middle, because most of the time, unless we're speaking, we're listening. We're trying to hear and get clues. So we're not necessarily as active participants as you all are. So we have a little bit more flexibility with eating and things like that. It'll be different, obviously, when we go in person, because we probably won't bring a bowl of salad and eat in the middle of a council meeting.
Good, thank you. And yeah, that being said, I think I'd still like to see us stick with the same time. But again, that's just my personal feeling after listening to a few of you speak. If we extend the cow meeting, I'm afraid same thing will happen as when I build a shelter at home. It immediately fills up, and the end result isn't really better organization. It's just more stuff. But let's see, a couple of other comments on my part. Let's see. First of all, I think it'd be really cool to meet in the fire station. I still have a little bit of kid myself. I think I'd really like meeting in there. I suspect they wouldn't let us use the fire pole, but maybe we could sneak that in anyway. But anyway, I like that idea a lot. And the cost, of course, is basically they're just giving it to us for free. So all of that sounds good to me. And thank you, clerk, for working that out with them. I think that's gonna be great for us.
All right. Thank you. It sounds like most people have said their piece. Is anyone ready to make a motion? If there's not a motion this evening, then it'll come back at a later date. Council or Mayor Pro Tem McHenry.
Well, I have a question. For me personally, unless we're pretty unanimous on the time change, I'd like to keep it at 5:30 as well then. I think we can revisit it. I'm going to mark it down and we can revisit it again soon and reevaluate or look at other options like adding another meeting date or something to help with that workload and keep it all going. So my question is, can I word that in a motion, or do I need to make the original motion and then we amend it? I can't remember what the proper way there is.
Original motion and then amendment.
Okay, so I move to suspend council rules and approve Agenda Bill 22-15, the resolution establishing a new meeting location for the City Council and Planning Commission and changing the start time for Council Committee of the Whole meetings as presented.
Second, Napland.
Right, it's been moved and seconded to approve Agenda Bill 22-15. Any further discussion or amendment?
I move to amend it to keep the time to the original time of 5 o'clock or 5:30, excuse me. Commissioner Isaacson.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to amend Agenda Bill 22-15 to keep the city council start time at 5:30 p.m. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Is there any discussion on the underlying or the agenda bill as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. And with that, we have no further business. So unless there are objections, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.